right, guys, welcome to another podcast episode of the Unclouded Podcast with Kevin Meza from Hermiston, Oregon. Kevin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to share my experience, and you know, I want to also say that I don't. When I got the opportunity to be on the podcast when you invited me, I was really excited. But I definitely um, don't want to seem like I am, you know, here to give people answers or advice. I'm always trying to learn,
Mm,
and I'm definitely first a learner. Somebody that I like soaking in information, listening to podcasts just like this. So I just think this is a really cool experience to share my experience and everything.
that's awesome, man. That's awesome. And you're 21 years old, right?
I'm 21.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When's your
that's right.
birthday?
In May,
May.
May
Well, so
4th.
what? But you're a 2000 baby, right?
Yeah, 2004.
2004. That's
Yeah,
crazy, bro. That's
yeah,
crazy.
2004. So
And this
I'm
is your first
29.
your first podcast.
First podcast ever. Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Well, it's good to have you. And just like you said, I think that, just a little bit that you shared there, I think that that's why as we get into the podcast and start kind of deep diving into your life and how you got into what you're doing now, I think that has a lot to say with your success because, you said it, you're first a learner, right? And you're not
Yeah.
here to tell anybody, give secrets, to success. You're just here to
Right.
share your experience. So for sure, man. So tell us a little bit about what you do, first of all, for the people that don't know who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my company is Meza Logistics. We're a third-party logistics company. So what that means is we pretty much transport freight on semi trucks. We pretty much specialize in shipping like flatbed freight. So when you go to Home Depot to buy shingles, to buy sheetrock, to buy lumber, we pretty much are the ones that are shipping a lot of that product from the mills, from the manufacturers to the stores. So we ship a variety of different products. We also work with like oversized, overdimensional shipments, overweight shipments, and stuff like that. So pretty much we coordinate freight to be picked up from point A to until it's delivered to point B, and then we are the middleman, and we don't actually operate the trucks ourselves. We're more like a contractor, and we make a percentage. We make a commission on the difference between what the customer pays us and what we pay the actual carrier company.
Wow, that's awesome. And so, how did Mesa Logistics start?
So I guess if we want to start, more in the beginning, in the long story, is pretty much my dad started with trucking. My dad actually grew up his whole life trucking in Mexico, and then uh, I grew up in Minnesota, of all places. I grew up in
Mm,
Minnesota. I was born in Minnesota, and then we ended up moving here to Hermiston in 2017. And then in 2018, my dad had the opportunity to buy a semi truck. Um, he didn't have a CDL. He didn't know how to drive a truck with a trailer, but he started the trucking. So he started trucking. He ended up growing that. Around that time, I was in barely starting high school. So I was like freshman in high school.
in 2017?
In 2017, I was in middle school. I was
Dude,
in eighth grade.
what?
Yeah. So then 2018, when my dad started trucking, I was freshman in high school. So he started trucking, and I was involved since the very beginning. Since we went to go look at the first truck he ever bought, I was involved, and I was always there. And that kind of, that's how I got my foot in the door. My dad ended up buying more trucks, and then he ended up growing a little bit, and then downsizing again. Um, and then so I had the background experience with trucking. When After I graduated high school, I ended up going to college. I moved to Portland. I went to Mount Hood Community College for probably like 4 months, and then I dropped out because I was studying business administration.
Mm-hmm.
And right away, like the first day I was there, I was like, this isn't it. Like this isn't me.
Hmm.
And I knew the whole time I already had the experience with trucking, and I knew I wanted to be a freight broker. Like that was already my thing. I wanted to be a freight broker. Um, and I just saw how we were working with other freight brokers to give us freight and give us work for our trucks. And I just saw how like these guys, I would be talking to them on the phone. They were always on vacation. They were like working from home. I knew they had to make, somewhat good money, and I had the background experience. So I ended up dropping out of college, and that's when I started working as a freight broker.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I want to backtrack. First of all, like Mexican truck drivers that drive trucks in Mexico are a different level.
Oh yeah, the whole different breed.
Dude,
Yeah,
completely
my
different.
respect, my hats off to them,
I've
honestly.
seen like I am like wow, like if you guys came to the US, you guys would kill it. Like just
Yeah,
insanely, like, insanely talented. So that's crazy. So I know that your dad's a really good truck driver if
yeah.
he grew up in Mexico. And then so you grew up in Minnesota. You were born in 2004 in
Yes.
Minnesota. What part of Minnesota?
We moved around a lot. We
Okay.
moved around from when I started kindergarten to when I ended up moving to Oregon. So I was seventh grade. We probably moved. I went to a different school every single year.
Why was that?
Um, so my parents were kind of just exploring different options, and they were the only ones. They had no family in Minnesota. They were the only ones there, so they had nothing holding them down. So they were kind of, they started off at a job, and then they would hear talk about there being like a really good job opportunity somewhere else, and we just pick up and leave. And we would
Mm.
actually, like, when we moved here to Oregon, my parents picked me up from school on a Monday. They picked me and my brother up from school, and they're like, "Hey, we're moving to Oregon." And then by Wednesday, we were already in a U-Haul. The house was already sold. We were already packed up and on the road already. So they
Mm.
were very quick. Nothing was holding them down. They were just, wherever the next job opportunity um, is where we were. So we were moving
What does
around
your
a lot.
mom do? Is she a stay-at-home mom? Or does she have a
My
job?
mom dispatches. So
Okay.
my mom works with my dad. They still run a couple of trucks. They have 3 trucks on the road right now, and she's the dispatcher. So she keeps the She keeps the drivers busy, and she um, sets up like appointments and deliveries and stuff like that.
Wow, that's awesome, man. That's insane. So you kind of just started really like you started when your dad started, right? Like you were at that age where
Yeah,
your dad actually bought his first truck, and so you kind
yeah,
of saw that how
yeah.
that all went. And so then obviously as he started growing, you were there. I'm assuming he would take you or he would make you help him
Oh
help
yeah.
out with like mechanic work and stuff like that. Hey guys, thanks for watching the Unclouded Podcast. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Zuper. Zuper is our CRM that we use for our roofing operations. Business is hard already. Your systems shouldn't be. And every missed call that you don't answer, it costs you money. And we just recently had a windstorm and we had Zuper's AI agent answer about 123 calls that we would have missed if we didn't have it. And it ended up turning up into 6 figures of revenue for us. And I had no idea that we were missing that many amount of calls. If you're ready to level up your operations, reach out to Zuper.
Yeah, so when he bought the first truck, we actually came to Pasco to look at it. And yeah, from the very beginning, like I created like his company Gmail account.
Mm.
We came to look at the truck. We test drove the truck together. We He ended up buying it. The very first trip that he ever did, that he was driving, I went with him. We have some crazy stories. We got lost. We've a lot of crazy stuff. But yeah, during the summers too, I would always go with him. Like the last day of school, we were on the truck. I was on there the whole summer, pretty much.
Yeah, man. Me and you have pretty similar, actually, believe it or not, we have really similar backgrounds in the sense that, like, my dad had a trucking company for
Yeah,
the longest time, ever since he's been driving trucks ever since I could remember, right?
yeah,
He started working for a farm and then he
yeah,
went to work for LTI, which was Milky Way.
yeah,
And then after Milky Way, he started his own company and then he had his own company up until 2021
yeah,
when I bought the business and then he came and worked for me. But like similar things, like I've seen my dad, I saw the way that he did business, the way that he hustled, the way that he
yeah,
negotiated, the way that he also lived sometimes paycheck to paycheck,
yeah.
had to pay fuel, had to pay all the expenses, motor would go out, had to
Hmm.
pay that, like all the goods and also all the bad. So I saw that. But yeah, I remember being a kid and my dad would take the corners and the curves, dude, as fast. And so I just
Yeah,
remember I never liked going because my dad drove crazy. And then also, like I tell people all the time, like I hate mechanic work.
me
I hate
too.
it
Yeah,
because I was a young kid and my
yeah,
dad would say, "Go bring me this," and I'd be
yeah,
like, "Oh damn, which one is it?" And then I'd
yeah,
be like panicking, like trying to get it from like the toolbox, like, "Damn, like millimeter, like what is this one?" You know? And then he'd be like, "Are
yeah,
you coming?" And then I'd get even more nervous, and then I
yeah,
have to go back, and you're like, I don't think it's there. And he'd be like, if I find it, then I'm gonna be,
Yeah, exactly.
and then I'm like, oh, so like I was always stressed. And so I had a really bad experience. And so
Yeah,
I just never liked, man, to the day, I don't like mechanic work. I hate mechanic work. I'd
yeah,
rather go take it to a shop than for me to work on it myself.
yeah.
But could you kind of relate with some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even like to this day, I definitely relate to that. And I remember, so when my dad bought his first truck, you know how when you're changing like wheels and stuff, I don't know if you've ever seen like at Les Schwab or stuff like that, they have the guns, obviously
Yeah.
like the big air
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
guns to take off the nuts and
Yep.
all that. And we didn't have that. Like, we didn't have the gun, so I didn't even know. But they sell manual ones, so you get like a huge bar, like from here to the roof. And me and my brother would like jump off of the trailer and hang ourselves off the end of the bar. And you heard a crack, that means it's loosening. And we changed a whole truck and a whole trailer, all of the tires by hand without any air gun, any nothing. We just That's how we started out. So it's a miracle that we've even like
That's crazy.
figured it out from there. But we really, really like, even if we had an air gun, we didn't have a compressor. We didn't know anybody that had tools or had a compressor or anything. So we really just like completely started from zero without
Yeah.
having any idea what we were doing.
Yeah, and that's how most things get started, man. Like you don't know what you're doing and you just do it, right? It's
Yeah.
called initiative. I just heard this recently. They said that, one of the lousiest compliments that you can get is that you're ambitious,
Yeah.
right? Because ambition is just as common as dirt, right? Most people would think of like, oh man, like that Kevin guy is ambitious, but I think that everybody has an ambition level to a certain extent. Like
Yeah.
we all want something out of life. Some want more than most, but some
Hmm.
people might just want a daily, right? Like
Right.
a beater, right? That's their ambition. That's as far as and some people might want the McLaren, right? So we all
Right.
have ambition. The
Right.
thing that we need to look for is initiative, right?
Right.
Initiative, because they say that ambition without initiative is just daydreaming, right?
Yeah.
If we don't actually take the initiative, which is like doing it without doing it without knowing that you're doing it correctly, you're
Yeah.
just doing it. You don't get instructions, you just take the initiative, whether you're doing it right or wrong. Hey, we're going to figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
And so I want to go right into that. So as you guys started, your dad bought a truck, then he bought a couple trucks, then he
Yeah.
grew a little bit, then he downsized,
Yeah.
and then now you guys are at where you're at now.
Yeah.
You just told me before we started that you guys run zero trucks. You guys don't have any
Yeah.
trucks.
Well, I don't have any trucks. So what happened was, during COVID, um, for people that are in the trucking industry, know, but people that aren't in the trucking industry might not know. But during COVID, rates went through the roof, and trucking rates were paying super good. People were making double or triple what they're making right now. It was absolutely crazy, something never ever seen before. And my dad took advantage of that opportunity. At that time, he had two trucks. He took advantage of the opportunity. He started uh, buying some more trucks and hiring drivers. He ended up with a fleet of 13 trucks and 20 something trailers,
Damn.
and that was like in a span of like a very short amount of time, probably 6 months or so.
Mhm.
And so that was a really good, like almost like a once in a lifetime opportunity where rates just went up like through the roof, and everybody was making good money. But I guess kind of the con to that was we grew really fast. We didn't know how to handle that. So there was kind of that pullback afterwards where we don't have any systems in place. We don't have any processes. We don't have a hiring process. We don't have a firing process. Um, Drivers aren't being trained. They're just, you have a CDL, okay, go do your drug test, and you're on the road the next day, or when we get the results. And there was no training on, this is how you tie down a load, this is how you do this. Nothing. So not even like a driving test, nothing. Like we were just completely blind. And so you know I'm pretty sure you can imagine, a
I'm already
company
picturing
a
it.
company of trucks in 5 different states, 10 trucks. There's no office management. There's no management of anything, and we're the only mechanics. There's no mechanic. It was just it was we weren't prepared for it as a company at all. And so we had to kind of take a step back, and figure out things and start over little by little with a stronger uh, stronger steps.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Stronger foundation.
Stronger foundation. There you go.
Yeah. No, I you're saying it and I'm laughing, smiling,
Yeah.
just because I've been there. I lived
Yeah.
that, bro. Like people don't understand that. What
Yeah.
you might hide at 1 million,
Hmm.
that gets hidden by revenue.
Yeah.
What you do at 5 million, you know, owner is still like company is still big enough where the owner can still put out a lot of those fires.
Right.
Revenue still hides that. But what you do at 10 million, it multiplies.
Yeah.
And then it's just like a full fire hose, full blast,
Yeah.
and you're just with your mouth wide open.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. People don't understand that. You don't have systems and processes.
Yeah.
What happened to you is what happened to me.
Yeah.
Our cells outgrew our operations.
Yeah.
And fast growth is good,
Yeah.
but it also comes with its cons.
Right.
And that con is that it could potentially put you out of business.
Yeah. Yeah.
The not having the structure to hire employees, to fire employees, to do the training, to do all of that. Like, dude, like we're restructuring everything. Like this year, our mindset was, this is where we really we cut back
Hmm.
and less is more.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you guys are doing because you said that you got rid of the trucks. So
Yeah.
you guys are now like a light business model, right? So
So
less overhead, I'm assuming.
yeah. So I guess there's a little bit more in between because my dad still runs his trucks.
Right.
So that whole story with my dad, that's kind of where I got my foot in the door in the trucking industry as a whole. When I went to college, um, I knew that I wanted to be a freight broker. And when I left, because I moved to Portland, I knew leaving that I wanted to find somebody that was successful in what I wanted to be successful in, which was as a freight broker, and somehow get them to take me under their wing and teach me, and that's exactly what I did. So that's kind of where I saw the lifestyle of owning trucks wasn't my best option out there, and I was more drawn to being a freight broker and not being an asset based company with trucks on the road.
So
So
so let me stop you there because I
yeah,
think that we should dive a little bit more into this.
yeah,
So where you were at and where most trucking company, because if you think of a trucking company,
yeah,
you talk to a friend, hey, I have a trucking company. It's like, oh, this guy has trucks and he
yeah,
drives,
yeah,
or he has people that drives for him, right?
yeah,
It's not like you're this big massive corporation that has a fleet of trucks, right?
right,
That's a complete. So you were in the asset based model, right?
yeah,
And then you pivoted to brokerage. Now I want to talk about the realities of an asset based model. So
yeah,
overhead, driver retainage, insurance,
yeah,
trucks
very,
breaking down. So I want you to talk about that to the people that don't know
yeah,
what that looks like. And then we're going to pivot right into what the brokerage model going to a light business model looks like now for you.
yeah,
What that eliminated. So start talking to us about how that asset based model looks like with all of the things that I just mentioned.
yeah. So it's I'll start off by saying it's two completely different worlds, and having trucks, owning trucks, and having drivers owning multiple trucks is very, very hard. The business is almost pretty much nowadays set up in a way where it's very hard to succeed because there's not very much control. Fuel goes up. Um, I do think that there's a lot of flaws in the business because, um, for starters, expenses. Hiring drivers is expensive. Insurance is very, very expensive. It's probably what puts owner operators and small fleets out of
Give
business
us an
the
idea
most.
of what the insurance cost might look like.
Um, it very. I know people that have had their CDL for 10 years, have never had a ticket. They pay $500 a month, and I know people that have not had their CDL for very long, even if they don't have any tickets at all, and they pay 2,500 a month. And I think the average right now is probably around that 20,000 a year mark for per truck.
Per truck.
Per truck. So
Okay.
20,000 a year per truck is probably average, I would say. Fuel, as we all know, is
So if
very
you have
expensive.
5 trucks, you're running $100,000 in
Yes.
insurance.
Yep. I had, I guess, um, when I had my own trucks, which we'll get into, I think
Mhm.
after, but I had 4 trucks of my own. I was paying $10,000 a month for 4 trucks, $10,000 a month. So yeah, 2,500 per
ten
truck.
thousand dollars a month. So
Yeah,
you're paying about $120,000 a year
$120,000 a year for a small fleet, and
just in insurance.
just in insurance. Yeah, and the other thing too is you spend all this money. You save up when you start out. You save up. You buy your first truck. Then you need to buy a trailer. And then what happened to me with multiple of my trucks was I bought a truck. This is a very good example of why it's so hard. I bought a truck for $30,000 in May of, I don't remember what year, but it was in May. I bought a truck for $30,000, um, and I owed all of that money. So I spent the whole year paying it off. I didn't even buy a trailer. I just bought the truck. I spent the whole year paying it off. May of the following year comes around. I give the last payment. 1 week later, the engine blows up,
Oh my god.
done. And it was another almost 30,000 to fix it. So I spent a whole year to pay off this, this truck, and then the day that I pay it off, the engine goes out, and that's very common. You know, breakdowns, insurance, diesel. It's just all a big mix of liabilities and um, you know, risk. It's just a whole big group of risk
It
put into
is.
one.
It is. Yeah, and I can see that. And I saw my dad and some people like they just run one truck
Hmm.
because running multiple trucks, even though you're doing more, you're not making more. All you're doing
Right.
is now you just have
Yeah.
really elevated your level of stress.
Yeah.
I remember my dad made more money literally by himself than when he had three
It's
trucks
true. Yeah.
because then the guys need something and then they break down and then you don't if you don't have good drivers,
Yeah.
hey, I'm broken down, I need you to come. A good driver goes, hey, I'm broken down, but I already got it fixed, I'm up
Yeah.
and running, right? But
Yeah.
it's very hard to find those.
Yeah.
Or they flip a trailer or
Yeah.
you lose the load or they're late to the appointment
Hmm.
or they get a ticket, they're overweight.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's just so much, right?
Yeah.
So to the model that you're doing now,
Yeah.
you've eliminated overhead,
Yeah.
insurance, managing employees on a day to day,
Yeah.
worrying if they're on schedule, and
Yeah.
so now you focus more on what? Like, what does your day look like?
So now, um, I will say also, um, another, I guess, con to having trucks, which is, I'll go back and
Mm-hmm.
forth a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have a small fleet of trucks, even if you had good drivers, because I had some very good drivers, and even if you have good drivers, it's a 24-hour thing. Like because you're getting calls 24/7 essentially. Trucks are on the road. If it's not one, it's the other. So there's always something moving. And if you have 4 trucks, you can't really afford to hire somebody yet unless you have 10 trucks or 15 trucks. So it's a 24/7 thing. Trucks breaks down, very tight margins. So it's hard to send out a tow truck. You're more like, or a mechanic service truck when it's something small, and you go out and fix it yourself. And that's kind of what life looks like as a small fleet owner. Now, this model that I have now, being a third party logistics company, is pretty much the complete opposite of that. I work from home currently. I used to have an office there in Hermiston, but currently I work from home. Um, there's 7 people on the team. Everybody works from home. We pretty much have our set office hours, so we pretty much work from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. We don't work on the weekends. It's a lot more of a balanced business model, and that is because we don't actually own the truck. So, you know, if a truck breaks down, that driver's calling the owner of that truck, or if he's the owner, then he fixes it. They just let us know, hey, I broke down, I'm going to be late, and we just let our customer know and keep them informed.
That's awesome. And so, with knowing both the models, what you were doing before and what you're doing now, like, what's one thing that you can't put a price on with what you're currently doing? What would you say that would be for you?
Um, I guess how would like what exactly
So
would you
like
have
for
it
me,
be?
so like for me, right? So
Uh-huh.
like as we grow and as you grow and as you scale, your
Yeah.
brokerage company and stuff like that, knowing what I knew as I started my business and knowing what I know now, like it's just peace of mind.
Yeah.
Like you can't put a price on peace of mind. I
Yeah.
tell people you can't put a price on having a really good job that you might make a little bit more less money than the other job,
Yeah.
but you actually enjoy and that you're excited to show up every morning. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. I think definitely um definitely something that you can't put a price on that I've noticed a major difference in my life now is just having time, having also not going crazy with things left and right that could either make and break my whole company, because one truck flipped and he crashed into somebody else and it's a whole big thing. Like now I don't have to worry about things like that. I also have more time. Uh, it hits 5 o'clock. Um, Customers are out. They're home. So there's no real, you know, everything kind of pauses until the next day, and that's something that was not um, existent.
That's why I asked specifically is
Yeah,
because of that. I knew that was going to be the answer
yeah,
because before you go from having to be available 24 hours, having to get on the road
yeah,
because the truck broke down,
yeah,
always wondering, man, like, am I going to be able to get a good night's sleep?
yeah.
If I go out of town for
Exactly.
vacation, am I going to be actually be able to be
Yeah.
vacationing, or am I going to get phone calls while
And
I'm
I do want to
there?
throw out there also, like, any time that you're a business owner, no matter what, you're always available. Your mind is always working. There's always something if you want to, especially if you're growing or if you're, you know, you want your business to be successful, there's always something, and you're always thinking and thinking of different ideas. But it's a lot different, owning a truck and getting a call, hey, I just flipped, the whole load is spilled all over the freeway. Um, they're
Hmm.
gonna arrest me right now,
Has it
and
happened to you?
not to that extent, but I have had, minor crashes, very very minor stuff.
Mm.
That's like $1,000, like
Oh,
doesn't
okay,
even
okay,
cover the
okay.
deductible. But I have
Sure.
had claims where I had one guy that was supposed to tarp a load. It was a load of lumber, and there was some miscommunication between myself and him and the dispatcher and the shipper and everybody. And long story short, he didn't tarp it. It got wet. They charged me for the damages, and insurance doesn't cover that. So insurance, most insurances now it's changed because there was a lot of claims like that. But most insurance do not cover moisture damage or any sort of if it gets wet, it gets ruined. Um, like I had to pay for it, so I did, and I had to pay for it. Luckily, the whole load didn't get ruined. It was just like what was on the top.
How much was it?
It was about $11,000.
Damn.
Yeah,
Still,
it was
it's a
$11,000.
lot.
I had to just I had to pay it, and those are the things that how we were saying with this you know logistics
Hmm.
3PL model. um, I don't have to worry so much about that. I still, if something like that happens, I'm still involved because it's still my customer, and I have to let them know, hey, this happened. The carrier didn't tarp it for whatever reason. The load got damaged. Um, let's figure out the next steps to get you paid for your claim because insurance isn't going to cover it.
Yeah, I want you to think about this question, and we'll come back and answer it later. But like for
Yeah,
those people that don't have a brokerage model, that own actually
yeah,
own a trucking company, like maybe think about like what your best advice would be for somebody like for
definitely.
somebody that is in that position of what you would recommend, or maybe the top lesson learned from that. But we'll come back to that because
Hmm.
I want to give you a piece of advice, and it's something that I just read, and it's something that I learned through experience. But I was reading a book just recently. It was I finished it a couple books ago,
Yeah,
and it was called The Psychology of Money. And in The Psychology of Money, it talked about the majority of the book. A lot of the points that it brought up was that the people that win are the people that are in it for the long time,
yeah,
right? Or they're in there for the long game,
yeah,
right? Because there has been a lot of investors that make way more in returns in a year, but that same mentality is what ends up biting them in the ass down the road,
hmm,
and then ends up tanking them, right? So they shared a lot of like with Warren Buffett, he throughout his entire life, he just made very very smart investments on low risk portfolio items,
yeah,
right? And then um, I think it's 90% of his wealth came after he was 65 or 67.
yep,
90% of it. But the reason why they say is because he played the low risk game for a long time.
right,
And if you're not in business in 10 years, then you can't ride the goods and the bads, which at the end, on an average, it's more good than it is bad. So,
yeah,
in a financial standpoint, right? If you have a really good, high returns one year, but then you have really bad returns the next year and you're not around anymore because you went bankrupt,
yeah,
you can't play the long game.
yeah,
And so, what I've learned as a company, in the beginning, it was uncalculated and it wasn't on purpose. And we just grew and we grew fast,
yeah,
right? But what I've learned is that some companies they get really aggressive with trying to win a bid or trying to win a project,
hmm,
and they get really aggressive, and because of that one particular project is what puts them out of business,
yeah,
versus saying, hey, I'm okay, and moving on to the next project, and then just doing a multitude of little projects throughout the year. They end up making the same amount, but there's two
yeah,
differences. the one that went in all in risky is no longer in business, and the person that said hey no thanks and then did a multitude of small projects ended up making the same amount as that person that would have done the
Yeah.
same if he would have gone in the separate route. But now the biggest reason is the biggest thing is that the second person is now still in business
Right.
and has ability to be able to do that in the years to follow.
Right.
And when you go out of business, you go out of business,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Unless you bankrupt and you start all over, but then you
Yeah.
have that much stacked against you. And so it's the long game,
Yeah.
right? It's not about getting rich in a year or two
Right.
years. And some of
Definitely.
us get really impatient and we really want to, be a overnight success. But the reality is, man, it's a long term game,
Yeah.
right? So going back to that question,
Yeah.
what would be that piece of advice that you would give somebody that's currently in that position, that currently is an owner operator or currently runs an asset based model?
So I think there was a couple points that you made that I really want to touch on. I guess first, just to kind of get it out of the way, I think like right now, uh, we say no a lot to our customers,
Mm,
because not every load is something that we want. Not every customer is a customer that we want. We're not out to just take anything that we can get. We there's somebody out there for that type of work. There's a lot of customers out there that are, um,
but it's not you.
yeah, it's not me. Yeah, it's not me. We've definitely in the more recent um, months and this past year, we've been saying no to a lot of other like smaller opportunities or opportunities where we don't really see that sort of support from the customer. Where like if one little thing goes wrong, they freak out over a truck showing up 5 minutes late. When we have customers that are really good customers right now, that if a truck breaks down, like hey, truck broke down, he's getting fixed, he's going to be there as soon as possible, I'm going to keep you updated. They're like, yeah, completely. I understand. It's a truck and things happen.
Mm,
So we've definitely gotten more of the opportunity to be able to say no to some projects and just take on the work that we're more specialized in and that we like to do
that's
more.
very impressive. I love that.
Yeah, and then so to kind of go back, so my advice, I guess, that I would say to somebody that is only doing the asset-based model, I think that every single trucking company out there, every single one of them should also be a brokerage, because trucking is very weird. I've always thought it's very weird that most companies in different industries, they get customers and they cover what they can, and what they can't, they they um they contract it out and they keep what they can. um and trucking isn't so much like that. I think people, um to start off, most people buy a truck, they're owner operators, and they live solely off of a load board or solely off of a broker or a couple of brokers, and they don't have any direct customers or any direct shippers. And I understand because it's very hard to get direct customers. It's a very competitive space, but I think you know the reason why a lot of owner operators and small fleets don't have or don't succeed is because they don't have that flexibility. They're living off of what somebody else, the rate that somebody else gives them. So they're not setting their own rates, and it's very hard when there's 10 trucks in one location and it's just a race to the bottom. Everybody's fighting for that load, and there's a broker in between. And so I've always said, if if you're a small fleet and you don't have your own sales team, like a roofing company has its own sales team, like you wouldn't rely on a different company to do your sales and then you only do your roofing. Like you have to have roofing and your the installers and also like sales. And trucking for some reason isn't like that. A lot of people, or it should be like that, but a lot of people outsource their sales in the form of a broker, and that limits you in a lot of ways. You don't build relationships with direct customers. You don't have flexibility with direct customers, and your rates are at the end of the day being capped because if you don't do it, somebody else will do it, and it's kind of that race to the bottom.
Mm-mm. I love that, dude. I love that. There's a lot of things that you said in there that were super good. Specifically the fact that you talked about relationships, and you know me, I'm a
Oh yeah.
huge relationship person,
Yeah.
right? Saved by relationships, that's our motto. And I think that that's probably one of the, because that was my question. Matter of fact, you kind of answered it, but like in a freight brokerage model, there's a lot of veterans. There's a lot of
Yeah.
people. So how does a 21-year-old build trust with these vendors, right? How did
Yeah.
you do that?
I think for starters, I mean, we've only really been in business as a freight brokerage for 3 years. We're going on 3 years since 2023, and it's very hard to get customers. It's a very competitive space. These shippers and these big facilities are getting easily 100 to 200 calls from different brokerages per day
Jeez.
offering them their services. And I think it just comes down to, for one, riches are in the niches, finding very specific um, companies that manufacture very specific things because they aren't really getting 100 calls per day. They're getting maybe one a week because nobody knows that they even exist. Nobody knows that they ship stuff. So I have some, for example, I work with a couple of nurseries, and so they grow trees and they ship them. They ship them across the country. They ship them across to different states. And most people see a nursery and they don't really assume that they're shipping stuff on full, truckloads, and they are. So definitely the niches. Go for specific things um, that you can be also become specialized in. You become very familiar and then build relationships not only with that company but with their companies that they do business with. So I have a lot of current customers that are mutual customers. So I have a lot of customers that sometimes we pick up at their location and that's my customer, and we also deliver to the location and that's also my customer, because we've been able to also get referrals from them. And I think for the most part, if you're starting out, you can't really go into a huge facility and try to just start with a big company right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
You just go and knock on some doors and do some cold calls to the very small facilities that ship one time a month, that ship one time every 2 weeks,
Mm.
even that only ship once every couple months, just to get your foot in the door and just to get some experience and become specialized in one specific thing.
Yeah, I like that. And like you mentioned a few there, like for us, it's crazy now.
Yeah.
Everything comes like now that we're more established, and because I'm
Yeah.
assuming some people might ask you like, dude, how do you do it? Like, how do you get these relationships? And it's
Yeah.
like it's sometimes it's hard to explain to somebody because
Yeah.
they're not in the mentality. They're still in like that really growth mode, and it doesn't mean that they're not going to understand it. It
Hmm.
just means that they're still thinking as like very in the business instead of working on the business, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard explaining to somebody like that. But I just had a guy just yesterday. He asked me, man, like, how do you get these relationships with some of these
Hmm.
GCs, like some of these primes? And it's just really hard for me to explain because that's just how we always done it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I go to somebody and we just build a relationship with them and we let them know, hey, this is what we do. And then eventually you get an opportunity. And when you get that opportunity, you got to knock it out of the park because if you do good work, not just for them, you keep them as a customer, but then not only that, now they're referring you to other people. So, for example, we just landed the Garfield County Hospital in Pomeroy. Matter
Hmm.
of fact, we just got contract today. It's going to be a $300,000 plus project.
Hmm.
The guy's talking to me about how he heard about us, and I'm very not involved. Like I was just there for the sales to production handoff meeting. There it's an architect out of Liberty Tech. My commercial estimator was the one that was working through the deal, quoting it. He's the one that landed it. I
Yeah.
didn't do it. But he estimated it out. He got it under contract. And I was just there at that meeting when he was talking about the contract. And so we're looking over the scope just before we officially sign. And so he talks to us, and in the conversation he goes, "Yeah, by the way, I got your number from so and so with this so and so engineering firm."
Yeah.
And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He said that you guys worked together on this so and so project. And I said, "Yeah." But the problem is that I never directly had contact with that person.
Yeah.
We just always communicated via email. And we didn't even have a similar interest. We just had a mutual customer.
Hmm.
But the thing is that it wasn't a problem. But the thing is that the way that I communicated with that customer and with him, he was really impressed.
Yeah.
I've never talked to this guy in real life.
Hmm.
I've never had a conversation with this guy in real life. I've only communicated with this guy via email. But this guy ends up referring us to this architect,
Yeah.
which the architect then calls us, and then we close on a $300,000 deal. So how do you explain that to
Yeah.
somebody?
And I'll give you an example in my case. there's two examples. I guess one of them is there's a company that well, I won't go into specifics. I'll just go into the important part. Um, I was I was thinking of ways to think outside of the box, and get some new customers over the winter. It gets pretty slow for us usually in the winter. Um, and so what I came up with is I made a huge sign, probably like 10 feet wide and like 5 feet tall, and I wrapped it. I put a big sign saying, "Hey, so and so company, we want to help you ship your freight." And I put this huge sign on one of my trucks, which the trucks that I used to run, they all look the same. They all have the same like design on them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I parked one of these trucks in front of their shop for like 3 days, and I put this giant sign saying, "Hey, we want to help you ship your freight." And and sure enough, they called me like 3 days later, and they're like, "Hey, I saw your sign." I put my phone number there. I put my email,
Oh my
and
gosh, I love it.
big sign, big truck. Who's not going to see a huge truck sitting outside of their yard? And it was across the street, so it wasn't on their property. But they saw it. They called me, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll give you guys a shot whenever we have something come up." And so that was one way. It's just how you were saying. How do you explain that to somebody? It's just you gotta for one, think outside of the box. And
Yes.
another thing also is there's a company, actually. I don't think you know this. There's actually a company that you do business with yourself, that I went to go visit, and I went to go visit them just as a cold lead, door knocking. I went to go visit them, and when I was walking in, I saw your van, the black one, driving out. And I was talking to the guy, and I was like, "Oh, you guys work with Noe?" And he was like, "Yeah, you know him?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, like I do." And so that just
I'm gonna have to charge you for the name drop.
I know. I mean, I think it's worth it. I think it's okay
It's
because
all
for
good.
one, that really opened up, like, it was a complete different um, energy in that conversation after that, because it opens up trust. It opens up, like, oh, like, this isn't just a random person from who knows where. Like, this is somebody that already has relationships in the community. And so we actually did our very first shipment with them today.
Awesome.
And I mean, it's a big company. They ship to, other big companies like Home Depot and, stuff like that. So, it's
So
like stuff like that.
awesome.
Like, how do you explain that? It's just a relationship that I didn't even put two and two together. I was doing a lot of cold door knocks that day, and I just walked in, your van rolls out, and
And
it
and
just
a
works
lot
out.
of the stuff, man, a lot of the breaks that I've gotten in business, just similar to that,
Hmm.
you can't explain to people that sometimes it's just right time
Hmm.
and the right place.
Yeah, exactly.
You
And
were at the
it's
right time
yeah,
in the right place when that van came through, right?
yeah.
And then it also goes into, it's also not what you know, it's
Who you know.
who you
Yeah,
know.
and also, I think uh, you've told me this before, probably multiple times, but success is when um, uh,
Preparedness.
preparation meets opportunity,
Yes.
and that's definitely like um, something that you know. There's always a lot of opportunities out there, but if you're not prepared and
Oh my gosh,
you can't take it
so
with you.
good,
And when you
man.
do get the opportunity and you are prepared, like say in this case where I was able to connect with that big company, that supplier, I was able to, I was prepared for it. We were looking for new customers. We're able to, we just started working them, but we are able to take that ball and run with it. And when you have an opportunity like that, and if you're prepared, that's where you just take it and run with it as fast as you can.
Yeah, because it is success is where preparedness and opportunity meet, man.
Yeah.
Like success is right there, but if my van went by and you didn't capitalize on that moment and say,
Hmm.
"Oh, you guys know him? Yeah, I know him too." Like
Yeah.
that was an opportunity there,
Yeah.
and you were not prepared.
Yeah.
So therefore, success is no longer there,
Yeah.
right? And so
Exactly.
it's really like that, man. Same thing I always tell people: if when this opportunity came for me to purchase a company and I was not prepared
Hmm.
and there was no opportunity. The opportunity was there.
Yeah.
So what did that leave? Preparedness,
Preparation. Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And so then if that and I had that, and so that's where the success came in. And so
Yeah.
vice versa,
Yeah.
right? You could
Yeah.
be prepared But if you don't go out there and create the opportunities,
Yeah.
there's still no success. And so I've always liked that preparedness and opportunity is where success
Yeah, and I also
happens.
think like I think a lot of people also, you touched on this earlier, but um how people will say, how did you do it, or how do you, you know, do it even if you don't feel prepared and stuff
Right.
like that. There is a lot of things also that you just go into without feeling prepared. Um and as long as you feel capable enough to figure it out along the way. I've done a lot of things, in my business and in my, life that I didn't feel like I was prepared for, but I had that, background knowledge of, I don't know exactly, but I'll figure it out as it goes. And I have just enough knowledge to be able to figure it out. I'm not completely starting from scratch,
Right.
but there's definitely like different things inside of the industry where, you know, when we had our first opportunity, or the first times to do oversized shipments, that's something a lot of people out there, small fleets and owner operators and companies, they don't do oversized.
And you
And
do oversize?
we do
Was your
oversized.
company the one that hit that bridge on the way to
No,
Seattle?
luckily not. Luckily not.
Hey, so I'm curious. So that
Yeah.
company that hit that bridge in Seattle, like that big overpass with that, like what does that look like? Like I've always wondered this. I've
Yeah.
always been curious. Like what does that look like financially for that company? Like does insurance cover that, or like because I mean that
Yeah.
bridge is that's a multi-million dollar project. It's not like oh you're like would you like they had to tear that bridge down and rebuild
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Insurance covers it, but it's not so easy as to just say like, oh, well, let insurance take care of it, because there's a limit, on the insurance, and it's probably going to get, capped out pretty quickly with something like that.
Yeah,
So it's just whatever your insurance doesn't cover is on the company.
you have to pay for it out of
Yeah.
pocket. So that potentially could have or did put that company out
Yeah.
of business, right?
Yeah.
Dude, that's insane.
There might also be, in this specific case, there might also be some responsibility, or a lot of responsibility, on if they had a pilot car. So, when there's oversized loads, sometimes there'll be a car in the front and sometimes a car in the back. With those tall shipments, you have to have a pilot car in the front with a high pole, which is just like a pole that sticks
And
up.
so, and that's that would fall on
That's a
the
third party
that's a
company.
third party
Yep,
company.
that they
So,
hire. So if they pass, their sole purpose, their sole job is to make sure they don't hit a bridge, and they hit a bridge, then they're probably going to get sued too. They
wow,
have their own insurance, they're a third party, so that could get involved.
wow.
And I don't think that a single policy, from what I know, would cover, unless it was already like a very, depending on the product and how much it was worth
Mm.
and stuff like that too. But
Yeah, yeah, that's dude. There's just so much, and there you go. We
yeah,
talk about the risks of an asset-based company,
yeah,
and so okay, so you're in Hermiston, which is
yeah,
like a very big hub in the Pacific
yes,
Northwest, crossroads, agriculture,
yes,
watermelons, a lot, onions,
yeah.
potatoes. So like, how does that affect like the impact on your brokerage with seasonability and stuff like that? Like, do you guys do a lot of that, or do you guys operate outside of Hermiston, like? You're not so much attached to, because I understand that a lot of the people that do those are owner operators, like
Yeah.
in the potato harvest and onion harvest and wheat harvest, like a lot of them are owner operators. Do you guys do any of that, or do you guys focus more on like outside of the market?
We focus on a little bit of a different market. We also, we're based in Hermiston, but our customers are all, scattered across different
Mm,
locations.
okay.
We have customers in Spokane, customers in Seattle, Yakima, Tri-Cities, Portland, um, California, Salt Lake City, Boise. They're spread out everywhere, and so sometimes we will have um, stuff in Hermiston, but it's more of you know we ship anywhere. We have shipments that go to New York. We have shipments that go to Florida.
Wow.
We have the whole country. We send stuff to Mexico. I used to do some Canada stuff too. Not really anymore. But it's a lot more of like a remote
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
and
yeah.
and a lot of times. Um, I would say probably like 6 months ago and back, I had never met any of my customers in person. So even though I had been working with them for a year or 2 years, I'd never met them in person. And as for like the seasonal work, there is a lot of seasonal work. There's a lot of agriculture. There's a lot of stuff like that. We don't get too much into that because I think, especially in Hermiston, there's a lot of people that are already have that under control,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and they take care of that, and we're kind of I would say, we're kind of like, we're the flatbed guys in
Mm,
in 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 Hermiston. There's a lot of people that do flatbed, but we're kind of, that's our thing,
I
and that's
understand.
what we focus on, and we work together with everybody else that does flatbed there, and
Yeah.
that's what we do.
And so hey, so tell me what's the future of your business in the next 3 to 5 years? Like, are you gonna stick to like a niche in the, like, for example, like refrigerated, or like where would you like to be in 3 to 5 years?
We have had the opportunity to go into how you're saying, like refrigerated and different commodities and stuff like that. But how I was saying earlier, we've really been able recently to say no to a lot of things, even though sometimes they're not bad opportunities, but it's just we have other opportunities to grow within our own, specific niche, and that's what we've been doing. So I do really like the flatbed industry, the flatbed niche, and that's kind of what I would like to focus in and grow in. And there's a lot of opportunity.
Sure.
So it's that's another thing that I would say, like, I've noticed a lot with owner operators and small fleets. They, especially owner operators, you know, loads in doing reefer pickup, and they hop over to reefer, and then it slows down for a week and they hop over to flatbed, and then it slows down for a couple days and they hop over to belly dump, and then it kind of slows down, they hop over to agriculture, and they're doing 4 or 5 different things in the year, and there's no relationships that are being built. Like, it's hard to build a relationship when you don't have one specific thing to be known for,
Mm.
to have a conversation about. It's just, oh well, I do this, but also this, but also this, and it's kind of like that saying, jack of all trades and master
Master
of
of none.
none.
That's good.
And I think it's hard to get a direct shipper. It's hard to get a relationship going when you don't have a specific thing that you focus on.
Yeah. And so if okay, so now think about it like this. I'm in an asset-based business, and I'm
Hmm.
watching this podcast somewhere
Yeah.
in the country,
Yeah.
maybe locally, and I go, man, like I'd really like to start my brokerage company. Like, what would you tell a young entrepreneur that's looking to get into like a B2B industry where, like you said, like it's
Yeah.
relationships, right?
Yeah.
Going door to door, like that company that you picked up that you just did a freight for today, right?
Yeah. For today.
Just like today, like that came from a cold call, right? So
Yeah.
like, but maybe it's not cold calling, maybe it's not, but like, what is that piece of advice that you would give like a young entrepreneur looking to get into the similar space that you're doing?
I would definitely say, from my experience, and what I do tell people that ask me right off the bat is, as a freight broker, you have to have at least 6 months of your expenses saved up, because you're probably not going to make any real money within at least 6 months.
Mm,
It's a very, very competitive industry, and there's a lot of opportunity. But you know, um, for me, it took me like 2 or 3 months to get my first customer, and when I did get my first customer, they only gave me one load, and then I never heard from them again. And then I got my second customer, also 1 or 2 loads, didn't really even make any money on them, and then again, for one reason or another, I never heard from them again. Um, and then, just to have the patience. It's sales in general, is something that is going to be, needed. You have to have um, some sort of not experience, but be willing to learn a little bit about sales and go door to door, and not be shy when you're talking to people on the phone. Be okay with getting hung up on 100 times per day, and just
that's
hang in
good.
there. After a little bit, it's tough, but after 3 4 months, you land 1 2 3 good customers, and that's really all you need in this industry. Like, they're repeat customers. If you hang in there, you get a like 3 or 4 good customers, you're set. You're good to start from there. And at least, like, for me, that's how I started. And then for B2B, and for me specifically, how they say 80% of your business comes from 20% of your
Yep.
customers, and that really is what um, that was the case with me. And I zoned in on those few customers that were really giving us a lot of freight, made sure they were always, super well taken care of, and then they just started giving us more and more work.
Yeah, man, that's so awesome, dude. That's so awesome. From the And I just look at the whole picture, man. Like I just think of sometimes I look at things just like with my dad. Like what a small percentage of like my dad leaving his hometown in Mexico,
Hmm.
going all the way to the US, bringing my mom over, not knowing a lick of English, figuring things out,
Yep.
starting his business, building his house without any knowledge, without any real money. And then all of a sudden, to like, hey, like I'm his offspring, right? And so
Yeah.
like I tell people like, I look at things now and my dad's biggest investment wasn't his trucking company. It
Hmm.
wasn't his house. It was me,
Yeah.
right? So I look at everything now and like what are the odds of me doing what I've been able to do? And I look at it like you, like your dad coming from Mexico and then moving to Minnesota and then jumping from school to school, moving to Oregon on a whim, and in 2017 you come over here, in
Hmm.
2018 he buys his own truck,
Yeah.
grows it, and while he's growing it, you're also paying attention and you're
Yeah.
learning the business, and you graduate, and then you already know what you want to do. You go to college, you figure out that's not for you, then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you go, you know what, I'm gonna try this thing.
Yeah.
You start exploring that, and now we're having this conversation, and
Yeah.
you're on the right path, man, from really taking the risk early on and going through those hardships,
Yeah.
starting with your own trucking companies. Like you are a young rising entrepreneur, man,
Yeah.
and I learned so much from today.
Yeah.
Like I always
Thank
tell
you. I
people,
appreciate
like,
it.
dude, that's the way that it should be.
Yeah.
Everybody always has something to learn from each other,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And I think, kind of going back to my experience with college and all that is I had my foot in the door in the trucking industry with my dad's trucks, but when I dropped out of college, I started right away as a freight broker. Um, and I still had that itch of that I wanted to own trucks. I wanted to see my trucks on the road. I wanted to be the actual, operator or
Mm-hmm.
owner of a trucking company. And I did. I bought my own trucks, um, and I experimented with that. I looked at the numbers. The numbers weren't really that great. So at the time I was doing both. I had my brokerage, which was very, very small, like two customers, very small.
Mm-hmm.
Probably wasn't even paying for its own expenses, which were very minimal.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just fully focused on my trucking. I grew that. And then I realized, you know what, like maybe this is the numbers aren't making sense, and it's doable because there's companies out there that do it and it's doable. But at some point, it's like, does paying $10,000 a month in insurance makes sense? Like it's doable, but the numbers aren't really there. So, why would I do that when I can do this? And that's when I focus more in on my brokerage. But yeah, no, I guess it's sort of one of those things where it just one thing leads to another. When I was in college before I dropped out, I did have the opportunity to do some other things. I had a lot of different interests. I was kind of in between actually, being a freight broker, being a real estate agent. I had some interest in going into like trucking insurance because I was like, if these guys are making all the money, I can't beat them, so why not join them? I'll open up
Yeah.
an insurance agency for trucking for truck companies, and and at the end of the day, I ended up, going this route. But I guess kind of interesting story with how that ended up coming to life is, um, a couple weeks before I dropped out, I had a project for one of my business classes, which was to interview somebody that was currently doing a business that we would like to,
Mm-hmm.
own in the future. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna make something up. I'll just write the essay, pretend I interviewed somebody and whatever. A couple days go by, and I run into this guy at the library, there at the college, and we were talking, just completely random. We were talking, and I was like, he was in that same class with me, so he was like, oh, I'm gonna do my interview, and I'm gonna interview this guy, and then the talk of trucking came up, and I was like, yeah, like this is what I kind of do. This is what I kind of like, and I was like, I want to be a freight broker. He was like, what is that? And I kind of explained it to him, and he told me like, hey, I actually know somebody that does that. Like I know somebody that's a freight broker. He owns his own company. And I was like, oh, really? Like that kind of sparked my interest. And he said, yeah. He's like, well, I don't really know him, but I was in the sauna at the gym like 2 weeks ago, and I just saw him, and we started talking, and he had like, I think he said that he had a nice watch. So I asked him what he does, and he said he was a freight broker, and he got his Instagram from him when he met him, and he passed his Instagram to me, and I reached out to him, and I was like, hey, like, I'm doing this project for school. I have to interview somebody. I was wondering if you'd be interested, and he said yeah. And so that's kind of, in a way, that's how it started. I did the interview with him. He was super, 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 cool guy. He told me everything that every question that I had, he answered it. And he has his own freight brokerage. I ended up a couple weeks later calling him and saying, "Hey, I'm gonna drop out. I want to work for you. I don't need any money. Don't pay me at all. I just want to learn." And and I ended up going to work with him. So I
Did you
worked.
get paid?
He put me on. We were on a commission model.
Hmm.
So I only got paid if I sold,
Right.
and I
But you were
sold.
there for the
I
experience
was
to
there for
begin
the
with.
experience. I was
Right.
okay with not even getting paid at all. But he wanted, I assumed, to create something a little bit more like long term. And he
Yeah.
was like, if I don't pay him, there's no way to build something
Right.
more long term. And so I was on commission. I didn't really sell a whole lot while I was there. Obviously that's on me.
Right.
But I mean, this guy, shout out to Nate. Nate, super, super cool guy. He taught me everything that I needed. I had a little bit of an idea because I was in the industry, but
Sure.
he taught me everything else that I didn't know. And
So he gave you some real life
he
experience.
definitely gave me some real life experience. His company um, was uh, big enough to where I was learning a lot of things, and he had a lot of experience with everything that had to do with
Sure.
owning a freight brokerage. But it was still, in a way, small enough to where I got to learn everything. Like, I was with him, sitting just as far as we are right now, for 6 months straight in a little office. So I really got to see his day to day, every single day, and completely learn from him. So I was there for 6 months, and I did that. And then that's when I decided to move back to Hermiston and do my own thing.
That's awesome, man. So how does somebody contact you if somebody wants to hire your company or look at you? Like how does somebody contact you?
Yeah, so we're on Google. If they Google Meza Logistics Hermiston, we're on there. My phone number is on there. We're everywhere. We don't have a physical office anymore.
Sure.
But we're on
Any
there.
social medias?
We're on Instagram, Meza Logistics. We're on TikTok also, just Meza Logistics, and yeah, I mean, if anybody out there needs any freight shipped, even if it's not flatbed stuff, we do a lot of dry van stuff, box trucks, sprinter vans, hot shots, which are like the goosenecks, anything like that. We're here to help and take some stress off anybody's hands that needs to ship stuff.
Nice. And if they mention that they heard you on the Unclouded podcast, did you give them a discount?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
All right. There you
Yeah,
go.
we're here to build relationships, just how you said, and we're happy to help anybody out, and definitely, you know, if we can, we're here to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being on the
All
podcast,
right,
man.
thank you, man.
Take
I
care.
appreciate it.
Absolutely.